Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Half Shell Heroes Blast to the Past. Now this was actually out. I think this has been out for probably like almost a month, maybe only like a half a month, like 2 or 3 weeks or so. But I was glad that it came on TV because I just never had the chance to just go online and really watch it. And plus, after I saw it, I think it was during, it may have been the second episode for this season, and it was like, oh, watch this right now. And it wasn't a commercial, like, it just came up at the bottom, like, watch this random thing right now. And so I kind of forgot about it after that episode, and I'd see the commercials, but I'd have to do other stuff that day, so I wouldn't get to see it. So I was actually kind of glad that they showed this this week, because, you know, it was actually a pretty cool episode, or I guess special. I don't even really know what to call it. I guess it was just a little special. And I like the 2D animation style. It was really funny. It allowed for them to do some other stuff that we don't get to see from the 3D animation side of things. Some stuff was the same, like the white eyes was pretty cool. But they went even further with the visual gags, which I really enjoyed. Like, wow, one of my favorite things, and it was really minor. Mikey was like, you know, hold on. He tells Raphael to hold on. And then it ends up being like a cardboard cutout, and it just falls over. Like, it was just on the stand that fell. I was like, they wouldn't. Well, I mean, they probably would. I mean, they've done some really silly stuff in the 3D animation, but I thought that was kind of cool. Like, it just lended itself well to the 2D style. Because I guess sometimes when things are 3D, it makes it seem too realistic, and it's like, oh, this random piece of wood fell over and then just vanished. It would. It's one of those things that is actually in the world for a second, and I guess it just seems different when it's, you know, 3D compared to 2D. But that was one of the cool things I enjoyed. The story of it was pretty cool because this was definitely Turtles in Time, so I loved that, and getting to see our characters, you know, shoot back in time. They actually run into the Triceratons, which I wasn't expecting at all, because when they found out about the Triceratons in the last season, it was only, you know, an episode apart, so it was like Triceratons and then the season finale, basically. So this would, like, canonically would have to take place in the next season for it to really kind of make any sense. So I thought that was interesting, that it was kind of like, oh, you know, they're dealing with the Triceratons, which I guess I don't know who else they could have possibly been dealing with, but, you know, it wasn't like they started off in space. They were in New York, and then when they got, you know, went back through time, it was the Triceratons. So I thought that was kind of interesting how they, you know, oddly enough, with it being about time and everything, this was sort of an out-of-time story because of, you know, how the series is going so far. But it was definitely fun. I didn't care, you know, where it landed or anything. It was just an awesome story. So I really enjoyed that. One thing that was actually kind of awesome, Bebop and Rocksteady going in the past, when they changed their outfits, they made them, they weren't exactly like the old ones, but they made them much closer to their original costumes. Like, Rocksteady had, like, the little turtle shoulder pads and stuff, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, he doesn't, obviously, it's not going to change him to where he just looks like the 80s version or the, you know, the comics. But I was like, that's really cool that they did that, because they, you know, it's like just a little nod. Like, here's, you know, them getting the clothing from the time, and he did technically kind of have like little turtle shells as like shoulder pads. So I thought that was kind of funny, just because I never considered it that way until I saw it in the special. Like, oh, they have their old costumes. And I guess he did have turtle shells on his shoulders. Like, it finally clicked after all this time. Like, yeah, he did. Just never really put that together. But I thought that was a cool little nod. Them just being in it in general, I thought was actually kind of cool, because I like Bebop and Rocksteady in this. They're really funny. Rocksteady is really cool, and just the way he speaks is funny. But Bebop is the one where it's just like so silly, and him always doing like the Michael Jackson stuff is really funny. And during the end fight scene, he had a really funny part where he's just floating in air and he's like thrusting his hips. I love that scene. It was just a really funny moment. And that was one of the things, like I mentioned, about the 2D animation over the 3D animation. It's just some stuff, like, they could have done that in 3D, but I don't know, something about it just, with it being 2D, you can do it where it skips a little bit and it still looks really smooth, and in 3D, you can just register it a little bit better, so it's not just, like, it's still technically the same thing where it's still just frame by frame, so they could have done it, but sometimes you just see it in 2D and 3D, and it just, visually, your brain just brings it up, you know, it kind of comes out differently to us. So I thought that was kind of cool. There was a scene where Mikey was fighting at the end, and he's doing like this, and then he just starts screaming, and he gets like cross-eyed and stuff. That made me laugh really hard, because it was just like the same animation for his arms, and his eyes were just like cross-eyed, and he's just like, ah, like this. I love that part because it was so funny. But they had some really great action scenes. I think my favorite action moment was during the ending fight scene, and they did sort of it was kind of like, I'm trying to think of how it was. Like they weren't running towards the camera, but they weren't running away from neither. It was almost like diagonal a little bit because it wasn't exactly side to side, but it was really cool. And they're like going through all the Triceratons and they're kicking and flipping and they're kind of rotating and everything. I was like, that looks really amazing, and that was one of the things. Like they do that a lot in the 3D animation, but I don't know if I've ever seen a series do something of that style in 2D outside of anime. I've never seen anything like that because this is like some Fairly Odd Parents style animation. So it's kind of interesting seeing action sequences with that sort of animation, and it just looked really cool. It's like, man, they do that in 3D a lot, but to see it in 2D and have it have almost like a 2.5D type perspective, I was like, that actually makes it more entertaining because it's meant to be 2D animation, but it brings it to a different level. So I was like, that just made it look even cooler because of however they did it. I have no idea, but I was like, that looks pretty amazing, and it's very close to what it looks like when it's in 3D. So I was like, that's actually very awesome. The turtles getting their own dinosaurs was actually pretty interesting. The scene with Raph when he was being dragged by the pterodactyl was hilarious to me as well. There was a lot of stuff that I kept rewinding because it just made me laugh so hard. And I don't think I've laughed that hard at a Ninja Turtles episode in a little while. Like, I've loved the episodes for sure, but there haven't really been moments where I've laughed so much. There's been like maybe one moment this current season, and I'm sure there was some stuff last season, but honestly, it's oddly enough, it's been like half a year for most of the last season at least. So I can't really remember outside of like the last couple of episodes leading into season 4. So unfortunately, I can't really remember some of my favorite funny moments. But this one had me laughing like crazy, and I really love it. The turtles are definitely funny. They definitely have great action. So this was a really great comedy one, but it had some amazing action moments as well. So certainly loved it. I like getting to see the turtle mech again. That was pretty cool, and it even transforms in this one, so that was pretty sweet. And we got to see this weird sort of ending. And it made me wonder if they were gonna keep this series going. Like every once in a while, we'd get like Heroes in the Half Shell type of thing, and I think they'll be cool, especially with how they ended it. I don't know if they are kind of giving us a wink or a nod to what we can look forward to in like season 5 or 6 maybe. But I would love for them to do this if they decide to like pick this up and do it all over again in 3D. That would be awesome to see them end it, and they're in like this crazy alternate timeline future where Shredder, is like at the Statue of Liberty, which is kind of awesome because there's just katanas all over the place, and obviously I love that. But it's also Shredder, so that's really bad. But I love that ending, and it made me want more. It kind of makes me want to see them do this whole series where they have this alternate timeline going, but I'd also prefer it to be full-on canon because I'd love to see it in 3D. Like, I like the 2D animation, but I would love to see this in 3D. It would take forever to do that. It already takes a long time just for 2D animation, so I know it would take a million years for us to get, this episode in 3D, but I'd love it. I think it would be cool if they decided to, kind of save this story and come back to it, and maybe we get, even if they didn't redo it in 3D, if they kind of just showed this episode and like this is where it fits in canon, and then they go back to the 3D stuff and they're in this crazy Shredder's future, I'd be totally fine with that because this was a really fun episode, and the way it ended, that's always awesome. The Turtles going up against Shredder when he rules everything, that's amazing. And it wasn't simple either. It was like he had the Statue of Liberty. He would have to go back in time for that to take place. I guess not really. He could just have it destroyed as Shredder. So I guess technically he wouldn't have to, but it would take a long time for something like that to happen. So maybe we'll get more Half Shell Hero episodes. I know there's a game about it. They've had, it's Nickelodeon. They have games about everything. But it was very cool to see this episode. I was glad that they actually put it on TV. I would have liked a new episode, but then I don't think I ever would have ended up watching. I never would have remembered that he was even online. So I was totally fine with it coming on. Plus, it was a good hour, 45 minutes, obviously minus commercials. But it was a good little story. It was nice and compact. We got to see the Turtles in New York, which is always pretty cool. Then they go back in time. We get the alternate costumes, alternate weapons. Which personally, I thought that was kind of stupid that they switched to the bone weapons. It made sense, costume wise. I got it, but it was like that. doesn't really work in any way, shape, or form. Like, Donatello went, I mean, well, Donatello didn't switch too much because he went from a stick to a stick. But for everyone else, it was like, alright, Mikey would probably be like the second, least affected by it, but he does have, a weapon that's connected by chains. And he also has, like, his blade that comes out and it becomes, like, I can't even think of what the actual name of the little thing is, but a mini scythe, that's not the actual name, it's like a Karai, I believe, is actually the name of the little version of a scythe. But it was kind of weird. I was like, why would they switch? It doesn't make any sense. And like, Leo has like stone blades and stuff, and I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. But it was still cool to see them switch costumes, and they give all of their dino pets bandanas and everything. I was like, that's kind of awesome too. When we fight, we see them fight against the Triceratons. We meet like a female commander, so I don't know if that'll ever come into play again, because all the Triceratons have been male, so that was another huge thing to me. Like, oh, they have. I would assume they would, but they actually have like a female general that they showed off as the main villain. So I actually enjoyed that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that they, did that, because it's always just been, and we haven't had the Triceratons too much anyway, so it's really only been, like a couple of characters that they focused on. But they've all been male, and they all just kind of look the same. So it was kind of cool to see that difference, and we got to see like a female Triceraton. But I love this little special. More than anything, I would like to see this become a part of the canon, and then we do get this alternate future storyline in 3D. But even if they just keep it going in 2D, I'd still love that, because I'd love to see if they have any plans for this, or why they made this just random little special. That's kind of like my biggest question, is like, why'd they make this random little special? It kind of just out of nowhere, like, let's just send the turtles, back in time, and then, it doesn't even, it ends on a cliffhanger as well. So I don't know if that's a plan, if they're doing a second series, like a sub-series, every once in a while maybe. But I certainly enjoyed it, of course. I want to know what you guys thought about it, though, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And my big question is, if they continued this canonically, would you want to see them continue it as a sub-series in 2D so that we get the 3D show and this new 2D version? Or would you rather they just pick this up and just save it, kind of take the storyline, place it in Season 4, and then continue on making it in 3D for the alternate Shredder storyline? And that way it just fits into the main series, because, like I said, at this point, it's just somewhere in space and time. Considering everything that's happening, it would have to be after they stop the Triceratons from blowing up Earth, and all this other stuff happens, and then they go back in time. But I want to know what you guys think about it. Either way, I'm looking forward to them hopefully expanding this in general. I hope this wasn't just a one-off, because I really did love it. So whether they put it in canon for the 3D series, or they kind of make it just little specials that could be like anywhere within the series, I definitely want to see them continue this, especially just with the way it ended. We haven't seen the Turtles versus Shredder in a while, so I'd love for that to happen very soon. I don't care if it's 2D or 3D or what. I'd love to see that happen sooner rather than later. But like I said, I want to know what you guys think about it, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.